Hi, Florence. Okay, so this is a very interesting episode, guys. This is actually the first time we're actually even talking together.
Yeah, what the heck? First impression. Um, I like how you always use like exclamation mark at the end of the sentence.
Me? Oh,
It's like, wow, this intern, very,
very
very
extra.
on the ball.
Everything. Exclamation mark, everything.
Yeah.
Okay, hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to 20 Minute Tea with Barsheer. On 20 Minute Tea, we talk about big brain stuff over 20 minutes because we don't even say 20 minutes anymore. We talk about it under the topics of adulting, which is from transition from teenhood to adult, and designing. Today, I have with me Florence. Hello, Florence.
Hello.
Yeah, so she's a bit tired now because we've been recording for like an hour plus, 2 hours. Oh my goodness. It's obviously going to be cut out and shortened a little bit more, but today we have Florence on. We'll get to know a little bit more about her later, but basically, in short, I know her through Farm, which is the place that I'm interning at. She was very, very kind to come in and join me with this little interesting session. We are doing something very different today on 20 Minute Tea. We're doing a more design breakdown kind of show. Yeah, so you get to see us. Today I present one work, which is Currents, and then after that, Florence, you presented what?
Keeping Barsheer alive.
Okay. My interpretation of what Barsheer, the Keeping Barsheer Alive is a new program that is embodied through a few as a new the application, new program, and a new set of visuals to also encourage the community to continue reading books, right? And the whole design community in terms of that sense. So yeah. And then for my part, I talk about my own final year, not my final year project, but my year to end of year project, which is looking at the Singapore Slice and what the Singapore Slice was about. We learned very interesting things. How would you summarize today's conversation, Florence?
I think it's an interesting exchange between like the different types of design. And to be able to see from different perspectives and how perhaps like in the future we could like have more like integration in different aspects of design, from like graphic to like spatial design.
Right. For me, my takeaway was that, like I said at the end, it's more about we're looking at different types of dimensions of how we also can create community and how we can revitalize or reinstill certain energy into space. I think we looked at kinetic energy. For mine, was the kinetic energy was bringing from the context of the history, and then after that for Florence was also looking at kinetic energy of exchanging of books and how that also can increase the circulation and energize the community. So yeah, that's all. That's what we talk about in today's session. Stay tuned and let's get into the episode.
Well, hey, what is it, guys? Welcome back to 20 Minute Tea. Today I'm joined with Florence. Hello, Florence.
Hi.
Hi, Florence. Okay, so this is a very interesting episode, guys. This is actually the first time we're actually even talking together.
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna be experimenting with a new format for 20 Minute Tea. This is gonna be very interesting. We're gonna be talking.
Wait.
Yeah.
I think they don't know where we met and how we met.
Okay. So yeah, okay. Before we get into that, hi. Okay, okay, Florence, how do we even know each other?
How about you tell them?
Okay. So the way I know Florence is through Farm, which is the place where I'm interning at. So basically there was this time when I had this little project, working on this special project, and then after that I didn't know how to do something, and I just asked on the main group, how do I do this? And then after that she DM'd me and said, oh, maybe you can try this. And then after that, oh, okay, thanks, I tried it. And then yeah, that's how we started chatting. And then after that then I just shared with her my Instagram, and then from then on we just kept like replying to each other's DMs and stuff like that. I think it's a very interesting episode because you're seeing our first interaction together, like face to face, and we're going to be talking about design. This is yeah, okay. But Florence, what was your like first impression of me or something like that? How did it go down on your end? Because my end, I was like looking for help.
First impression. I like how you always use like exclamation mark at the end of the sentence.
Me? Oh.
It's like, wow, this intern, very
very
on the ball.
Everything. Exclamation mark, everything.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope I didn't come across like very desperate.
No, I think you came across like very enthusiastic.
Very entula.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that should be the mental portrayal, but it is what it is. Okay, so yeah, maybe Florence, maybe like you give yourself give a little bit of an introduction to who you are. Like what are like some little things like just to get to know you just real quick. How would you like introduce yourself?
Okay, so I actually graduated from Temasek Poly. I took visual communication. I am the last batch of BSc before it became communication design in TP. So right after that, I actually took a gap year. So I actually didn't further study, and then I went to work for like a year or so. Then after that, I actually took up UI UX, which is also is a still future course, also in TP. And then in that course, you actually have to work and study at the same time. Yeah, so I actually work at this company. It's actually a local company called No Membo, and they do like really fantastic and nice leather products. Yeah, so that's kind of like where I came from. Now I'm at Farm, and that's how I met you.
Right. Well, maybe like a quick introduction to what Farm is. Like, how would you describe Farm?
Wow.
now you're representing the company. Okay, but wait, okay, your side. Like, I mean, what do you do at Farm? What do you do at Farm?
What do I do at Farm? Okay, I'm doing branding at Farm.
I think Farm is Farm. As you can see, Farm is a very interesting place because they are like very, from my impression, Farm is, the way I would describe it is like it's a multidisciplinary design firm where they have like architecture, interior, branding, wayfinding, all of the things all in house.
Yes.
What is the thing that you really love about Farm?
I think I really like the concept of like how they have like interior architecture and like a graphic team together. So like what you say, like they are all like in-house. So you can actually see like real life collaboration going on. Okay, the project that I'm working on right now, I don't really get to collaborate much in terms of like with the interior or archi. But from the projects that I've seen in like their website, I can see like there are like a few projects like where you can see like how when they do hotel, then you see like wayfinding and brandings, where you see like how like from the branding aspect, like the visual aspect, and how like the archi aspect and the interior aspect, they're all like coming together to like come up with this whole branding and like whole system. Yeah.
Watch the previous episodes. How many episodes have you watched also?
Well, actually I'm taking it very slow, but I think I've watched like your season 2.
Which is
so no, actually the thing is how I found out about how I found out that you did podcast was because you shared me your Instagram. Then I was like, what, like this millennial kid like sharing with me like Instagram account to like, I don't know, make friends. Like, okay, fine. So I like accepted it. Then I was like, oh, okay, so this guy like he does like podcast. That's quite cool. Then I went to like listen to it, and I thought it was quite inspiring.
Huh.
So,
wow. I don't know, I mean, it's just stories from my family, and I don't know, I think my take on like there's something that I always share with people is that like I mean it's more about my family lah. So the thing is like when we all choose to do like or like to follow, like at least for us, like follow the Bible and follow our convictions and stuff like that, that's why we also start to find ourselves becoming more unique, and then that's kind of why things looks more interesting, but for us it's actually just very normal lah. Yeah. So something new that I want to introduce for this special episode of 20 Minute Teas, episode 7, is that we're going to be talking more about design, and we're going to do a little bit of a design breakdown. I'm not really sure how it's going to turn out, but I'm calling it a breakdown episode. Okay?
Interesting.
Yes. So the way we're going to do it is that I'm going to share one project that I'm very interested in. Maybe in future episodes, maybe I won't share at all, but it'll be me, one person sharing they're doing a design presentation, and then after that we'll have an open discussion. Then after we just talk about the project, look at new possibilities or interesting thoughts that could have been developed, or what were some things that were very fascinating. It's a very, very constructive kind of critique kind of thing. Yeah, right. I think it'll be interesting to be like do a design critique, and to it's like okay, for you come from UX, and then for me I'm doing spatial design, and it's very interesting how can those two specific disciplines also leverage or how to say collaborate with each other in terms of mindset, and how are there similarities in that sense. After we have an open discussion, then after that I'll hand over to Florence to do a design presentation, and after that she'll share her project, and after that we have open discussion, and then in the final part we'll have a conclusion, and after that, and then we call it quits. So at this point of time, I think to start off and to show like kind of an example of like how I kind of envision it going, I will be doing the first design presentation, and right now I'm going to share my screen. Woo! Stress. Alright, can you see?
Yes.
Okay, so ready? Here we go.
Nice.
It's kind of all over the place, but I'm gonna share a studio project that I did in when was that? The end of year 2. Okay, so this is my year 2 project, something that we have done. So basically, to give a little bit of context, for me, this studio project for us, we do like it's like over a few months and stuff like that. There's a series of exercises, little different tasks. That's why you can see many like renditions and stuff like that. So each little project also does build up to the final work. So something that's very interesting about spatial design is that we are looking at in this process we try to uncover a unique context. So quick run through of like what our process was. First off, we were given a slice. So we were given this map of Singapore, and then after that certain section of Singapore we were given I think about if I'm not wrong 2 kilometer long line that was drawn across the map. Everybody in the studio was given a unique map with a unique line drawn on it. So along that line, what we were supposed to do is we were supposed to walk across that line, going through all of the buildings, and then after that even through the trees, going up the hill and all the stuff. This is actually Fort Canning Hill. So we started over here. For me, my line started at Peranakan Museum, and then walked all the way to across Clarke Quay, which was somewhere. I think there was a design school over there. So we were given this line. Everybody was supposed to go on that line, and then after that we were supposed to draw out this sectional drawing. So, and after that we were supposed to mark all the landmarks and then stuff like that. We're not only supposed to draw what's on top where we can see, we're also supposed to draw underneath. So things like car parks and stuff like that, we were supposed to try to understand and break down. So this is my first sketch, initial sketch of that line. It was a very, very interesting line because every single line is different, and throughout this whole space, throughout this whole urban context, there are many different stories that can be found. We'll get a little bit more into that. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to deconstruct the urban environment. Normally, when we talk about urban spaces, we always see buildings, right? Buildings. There is a certain type of way that you're supposed to move through the space. Like for example, a road is telling you go straight down here, turn down here, and then after that, the wall, it says you can't go through here, you're supposed to walk around, and then after that interact with the space that way. There is a certain design. But whereas this line is going against the signs, against the line that you're supposed to walk here, we are supposed to walk through the building. Instead of walking around, we walk through it, and then after that try to go against the sign. the signs that say you're supposed to move this way. So in that sense, my lecturer was saying you are trying to design the space, to go against it. To D is to go against, and that kind of mentality. So by experiencing the space in a different way, we uncovered new kinds of interpretations of that context. So yeah, that was the first iteration, and that was the first like base kind of exploration. So what we did next is okay, here it is. Okay, so what we did also in the next few iterations is that we did a lot of photographs, try to like capture over the line what were all the different like spaces of interest and stuff like that. So here are some like of my images that I got from my slice. Okay, so I like have like go through Clarke Quay and stuff like that, and yeah, ending up at this spot. So and then after that, as I think one thing is about very interesting about going through the slice and walking through the space is that you also develop a certain attitude towards the urban environment. One thing that I did experience was that, or one thing that I did challenge myself to do was to go as fast as I could. So I did a few rounds, like I think about 2 rounds, and then in the second round when I went down to the site, I tried to go as fast as I could, and I like kind of raced my way through the first round, going in one direction, and then like going back, I walked very slow. So I'll talk about a bit more, but basically what it did to me was that
wait, so this is like a research, like for you to like see how that line can
it's trying to experience that line, and after that trying to understand it from a different perspective by going against the signs, which is like the roads, the paths, against the walls and stuff like that. So by going in this unique path and experience, as you can see, we have like a hill kind of experience over here, right? So I kind of developed a little bit of an attitude towards it, and later on I will also be talking a little bit more about what I felt. But just to go a little bit more following along the whole story of the project, what we did next is we did the whole thing on a huge 4-meter long. We did the sectional drawing on a huge 4-meter long kind of line paper. Along the things, that's where we put the pictures, and after that we also did some research, like supplementary research into like the context of the space. Alright. So yeah.
It is like a very big piece of paper.
Yes, it's very big. Here's an image of what it looks like. So yeah, this is like that's my studio. So it's really long. Yeah.
So this is like everybody's.
Yeah, everybody has one. So we like stuck it all over the place and stuff like that.
I see.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's very long. Yeah. Depression. Yeah. So yeah, and I kind of like developed a certain mood and tone or attitude towards the drawing as I was like spending a lot of time on it. What we did afterwards was that we were supposed to express the space through a model. So we built the model. We built a model to express the whole thing. And what you're actually looking at over here is hair, human hair. Yeah.
Right.
So many different other people use different kinds of media to express their own things. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention was that we are supposed to give our slice, or like the city, a name. So my city, yeah, so due to your experience and due to your attitude that you develop towards the space, you come up with a name for your slice. My name for the slice was called a city of brutal. I forgot already. Something like it was like something that was disgusting lah. Yeah. So one of the things that I developed as an attitude was that when I was walking through the hill, I developed a certain type of like frustration and certain type of angst. I think throughout this period of time, I was also a little bit like frustrated with my whole experience, and I had this very negative attitude, and it also started to bleed into the work. So in the sense, that's why I started to see the spaces in a more negative light. When we looked at the forested areas, I didn't see the forest as a forest or like the park as a park, but I saw it as a plastic kind of representation of the city, in the sense that it is unnatural. It is not something that naturally occurs, but is very plastic in the sense that it was predetermined and preconceived, and then after that it was arranged in a certain way to create a certain experience. So that's why I said it was very plastic. Another thing was that Clarke Quay. One thing that I saw was that, or I felt towards the space, was that it was I can show the picture. Part of my comments in the thing was that I said it was original architecture has been gutted out and a new space has been shoved into the colonial corpse, a form of historical rape for monetary gain. Or offensive perspective. Okay, it's a bit jarring, but the whole thing that I was actually looking at was that this space used to be a warehouse for goods that came out from the harbour, and after that was stored in these spaces. So from a space of work, it is now, in my perspective at the time, it became like now the space is becoming going against the will or against the original intent of the space. So that's why I said it was being gutted out and being in a form of architectural rape. So as you can see, and other iterations of like the same idea of like it's very, very jarring was also expressed throughout my comments through the thing. Like for example, over here is like Parasite. Another one over here was Haunted Hills and stuff like that. So I don't really, it was a hit space that I was kind of like interested in at that period of time. I don't know why, but
Right.
yeah.
Why were you in such like negative thoughts while you were going through? Like, what was the angst all about?
There was a lot of frustration. I don't know why, but probably due to my workload or due to like just the attitude that I was developing, and it was not a really healthy headspace that I was keeping. At the point of time, I was really working very hard, and I didn't have my family base behind me a lot because I was like staying at school a lot. So I kind of felt a little bit more alone. I guess that's kind of how it also bled into the work.
You mentioned like why do you use like hair as like the main use?
Yeah, so I'm kind of building up to that, which is like I kind of had like this disgusted or this very, very aggressive tone towards the thing, towards the piece, so towards the space. So and that's kind of why I titled it, I think if I'm not wrong, A City of I forgot what it was already, but it was something very not so nice lah. And then after that, and yeah, so with the idea of the hair, I think what I was looking at was that I wanted to portray, or like, because when we look at hair itself, this hair is on your head, hair is on your body, right? And it doesn't feel disgusting, but when you see it off the human body, it kind of.
Whose hair is this? Is this like your beard or something?
Yeah, I actually went to North Point, and then after that I went to the barber. It's like, I have this very odd request. Can I have like a bag of hair? And yeah, I have like brown, black hair, and then I have light brown hair and stuff like that, and there are many types of hair inside. The way that I made it, yeah, the way that I made it is, you can see a bit over here. Yeah, that's me playing with the hair, and I have this
with bare hands.
Yeah, like the spray, the glue spray, and after that there are many different ways of using. I wanted to experiment with using a different media to really how to say, because hair is one dimensional, right? But when you actually net it, and also you're able to also introduce a new form. One thing that's very interesting that you're looking at here is that when you combine two medias or two mediums together, this composite is able to generate new types of forms with the glue and with the structural hair. And then that's how I created many like different ideas or different forms from the hair, and it's kind of like a cladding that I wanted to do to also like illustrate different ideas along the slice. So yeah.
How many bag of hair do you actually get?
If I'm not wrong, I think for this one I used like 5 locks. So there was like 5 women like that I went to the barber, and then after that walked off, and then after that got their hair passed to this stranger, and then after that he started like spraying glue into it to make a model.
Did you have to pay for it? Or like,
No, he just gave it to me. Yeah, it was really odd. Yeah, and I thought it was very funny. But yeah, so I can't really remember what I was really looking at because this was like quite a few months ago. But yeah, this was the expression, a very, very disgusting representation of what I felt through the whole experience. We now move on to some of the later stages of the project where we came up with a proposal. So this was along a certain part of the slice, which was at I specifically we were instructed to choose a certain spot within the slice to also develop an intervention. Whew, okay, let me try to see whether I can remember what I'm looking at. Okay, so I'm gonna present from my P-board. Okay. This is my P-board and I named it Trauma. Okay, let me see.
What's a P-board?
P-board is presentation board. P-board's presentation board. This was like A1. So the site is Clarke Quay Alley in the shop house. The target users are Singaporeans on leisure. The material is precast industrial concrete. The program is a non-consensual intervention that traumatizes the space, reframing and perverting. Oh yeah, discussing perversions was the name of the city. Yeah, perverting the user's perception of Singapore's progress, motivating the authorities to rebuild the entire complex. So the intention for this was like, I think what I was looking at, I was trying to create a brutalist pavilion to also traumatize the space, to destroy the space, and then the way it's built along this corridor was that it was supposed to be built in to also like traumatize the space. A minimalistic hard cold material is chosen for a stark contrast when driven through the detailed tourist site. So it's like vandalism through form. Normally people, when they vandalize a space, then after that the walls have to be repainted over. So I was looking at trying to vandalize the space through a physical form. So my approach was that, this is a detailed breakdown of what I was looking at. My approach was, as I traveled through the Singapore slice, I developed a rather aggressive attitude toward the urban space. My synthesis was that the original architecture of Clarke Quay has been gutted out and replaced with a new a new space has been shoved into this colonial corpse. The intent is to seek to reveal this violation of culture of the users through the space, to shift their perception of the space from that of democratic progress to that of an authoritarian regime, where like the whole space was just totally transformed against the will. The brutal intervention, the L concrete beams appear to have been shoved into the parent architecture, destroying it. So, architectural rape, a non-consensual act of performed upon the body of the space. The construction is that the parent architecture is destroyed in the process of installing the structure, and the rubble of the building is left on the site. So, the three types of spaces that I explore, or like that I create, is number one, the passage, a constructing transitional space created via obstructing walls. High overhanging forms crush the viewer in their perception of the space. Number two is the staircase, inspired by the sweeping forms of the hair perversion model. I was looking at a specific section of the model where they had this swirling feature. The structure creates a clockwise movement that reframes the user's perception of the space, replacing them within the space. So as they go in this clockwise motion upwards, then after that they feel different, or like their perception is like the process of kind of moving in a circle. You kind of feel like you're going into a different space. Number three is the viewing decks. So the first deck opens to the perspective of Clarke Quay Alley. The second deck opens to the perspective of the downtown core, collaging the two images of the landscape into the viewer's mind. So the unsafe deck exposed to the hot sun to really to cause the viewers to feel something more aggressive and to appreciate the site a bit more for its original, or to actually uncover the reality of that space. Yeah. As you can see, it was kind of negative, but actually throughout this period of time, between this date and this date, which is the 6th and the 22nd of these submissions, I actually changed in my mindset. So between these two spots, right, I actually went on a trip with my family to Macau. And throughout that trip, I kind of like, I was questioning myself. I was asking myself, why am I so aggressive? And then after that, when I came back, I kind of had a little bit of a revelation. It's also because like I also went through a certain experience with my family, and then after that.
Wait a minute. So how long is this project?
It was I think across like November all the way to January. It's about 3 months.
Yeah, so in this 3 months there was like a mini break, like school break or something.
Yes, yeah, there was a holiday in between, and then after that I was very frustrated and stuff like that, and my emotions were like in flux and stuff like that. But then after that, after going through this trip and really experiencing a different space, I kind of reframed my mind, and also my attitude towards design also kind of shifted. And as you can see, you will see in the next iteration of the project. So this is we did a revision of the project, and then we had to change our intervention. So the thing about information is this, something that I learned from this studio project is that the context can inform you of something. It gives you information is there has no gender to it. It is neutral, so it can be interpreted in a positive sense, or a negative sense that the space is being violated, but also can be seen in the sense that there's a new opportunity that I forgot where my train of thoughts were at a period of time, but something that I did change was I shift my focus of what the possibility of the space could be. So let me present this final production of the project, which I call the Currents. Okay, so we see the Currents. So a modern Singaporean workspace reviving the industrious spirit of the Singapore River. So one thing that was seen at that site was that so one thing that can be done towards the site was that it can be continued to be violated, which was the previous one, which was to continue to traumatize it. Or the second option was to heal it. Right? So there's a positive and a negative kind of response. So and then after that, in the next response, I developed a more positive mindset, and this also influenced the work in the sense that now I'm not looking at trying to violate the space, but I'm trying to heal the space, because there has been a certain tear, or there's a specific a separation from the origin of the original intent or original meaning of the space, interpretation of space. So what I sought to do in this iteration of the project, or through this intervention, was to heal the site architecture as it has been architecturally raped and forced against her will. So in the process, a modern Singaporean workspace, the proposal was a modern Singaporean workspace reviving the industrial spirit of the Singapore River, where the master program was the healing rings of activity that connect a community of hard workers. And then some of the slave concepts that I apply was open work decks, personal vessels of trade and creation, show and tell, which is a concept that is played throughout the space, and connectivity, a work-life balance, so connecting the workspaces with the leisure spaces. So down here is an office building, and down here is the leisure spaces of Clarke Quay. So where this intervention kind of threads the two programs together, one of work and one of leisure. So the site is the Singapore River between Clarke Quay and the central Clarke Quay complex, and the target users are young entrepreneurs, freelancers, and startups. So down here you can see a little bit more of that. So as you can see, it's a little bit more skeletal. It's a bit there isn't a lot of detail because like it was rushed within like a week and stuff like that. But I think it's a very interesting project because what we're looking at is creating a certain specific response. So my process was that the present architecture is being economically raped, so where the users' activities are focused on pleasing the self and feeding their own lusts. So the origin that I seek to also bring out is that to bring back the work culture of colonial Singapore, where the site is healed as it returns her to her roots, and the activities within the space is being based upon giving and building together with the users like in the past. So the activities from taking to giving, from individualism to community. In the present is about oneself, enjoy themselves, and then right now I want to bring it back to giving. So the response towards this gap was that a healing intervention, the Currents, is an open, collaborative workspace which facilitates entrepreneurial activities where freelancers and startups can build and perform their trade. So a work-life balance. The architecture is tethered to the spaces of leisure and also close to the nature, so Fort Canning Hill. So trying to quickly wrap up. Connecting rings. it's like a series of like moving spaces, and after that personal vessels where like individual module kind of workspaces where people can also view the outside space and also enjoy a more like integrated experience. Universal waters, this kind of like netted feature where it's like a playground kind of feature where it connects the activities from the river into the space, so the kinetic energy is brought in. Then number 3 and number 4 is open decks. So within this open decks, we see a large open air space for performances and play and for people to interact together, and also against the historical backdrop of Singapore. So the way I came up with this structure was that I did certain site mappings. So these are like the destinations of pleasure and work. So pleasure, and then this is work, together with the human traffic of like this space. As the red, you can see where there's higher levels of activity. I combine those together to create these transitional spaces. So I want to connect the spaces to the specific points of traffic. High tension spaces where I found there was a lot of noise and a lot of sound and stuff like that, connected together with added together with the open free spaces. That's where I situate the workspaces to be at a specific spot where there's less noise, and a greater view. Lastly, we have the vehicular flow, which is the boats, and then the cars, and then the airflow, which is the way that the air moves within the space. I combine those together to create those kinetic spaces. And then these three, the transitional spaces, the work spaces, and the kinetic spaces, I layer them together, the collage of the 3 synthesized spaces. I overlap them together, and then after that, I draw guidelines from the surrounding architecture. So, like for example, this is the river. I protrude one line, and I use them as guidelines, and then I conform the lines to I combine the architecture to the lines or the guidelines, and then this is the final layout, and then I create those 3 kind of like layers to also create a certain interconnected program. So yeah, this is the proposal. Instead of raping the space, I proposed something that was of a healing nature to also revive that which was lost and returning the space to its origin of more of work and of giving, and a space for community. So yeah, that's my project, the Currents. So after 3 months of this one, it transitioned from a line on a slice, a line on a map, and then it transitioned all the way to a proposal of a certain degree of interest. So yeah, that's my project. Oh my goodness, I didn't know it would take so long. How long do you think it took?
I don't know, 15 minutes, 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? I think 10 minutes.
Yeah, so yeah, that was my last project for school. I think you're kind of hanging right now.
So wait, you're in year 3 right now, right?
Yes, I'm currently in year 3. So that was a year 2 project.
And like final sem or something?
Yes, that was sem 4 if I'm not wrong. Yeah, that was the last project for year 2. Studio project. I really like that one a lot.
Can you just... Yeah, why do you like it so much?
Why do I like it so much? I kind of think it's very interesting because I'm trying to deconstruct the space, and try to read between the lines to uncover the underlying context and to elevate it, and then create a certain program for the people to... I don't know, I just like thinking a lot. I just think I like thinking a lot. Yeah.
But like, what was the underlying context for you?
The underlying context for me for that project? I think it was, as you can see, my emotions did play a big part of like the interpretation of the space. So I see it to be that the site or the urban context also shaped me and my attitude, and through that attitude it also did bleed back into the work itself. So I take it as a personal journey or discovery for myself. One thing my lecturer did say was that it might be telling of my deeper human nature which is that of, I don't know, something more disgusting.
Haha. Okay.
but then also there's also a certain like narrative that also does transition back into something more positive as my own emotions began to heal, and where I started to become more grounded together with my family. And then that's when it also did take a positive trend. So yeah, a lot of the influences, where be it the physical space or be it the social context, I felt there was a certain journey for me. So yeah.
I'm quite curious, like, why do you call it like what was the name of the project?
It was the name of the city was called Brutal Perversions. The city of brutal perversions.
Okay, so like what were you even thinking? Like, who was living like in that world? Like, what was going on? Like, what's happening then?
Okay. This kind of very raw perception, right, came from this text that I wrote from Ram Kuha. Ram Kuha is a very prolific writer. He's an architectural writer, and he also is an architect. He runs, if I'm not wrong, I forgot that company already, but his studio is a very he's a really big architect, and he did this book, and it was titled Small, Medium, Large, Extra Large, so SMLXL, and in one of his it's a really thick book, and our lecturers got us to read it, and they gave us a certain excerpt from his commentary of Singapore. And he had this very interesting perception of like our current reality. For example, he talked about how HDBs are the spaces that we live in. We kind of live in walls. We kind of live in these kinds of prefabricated kind of structures, walls, if you can say. And his own interpretation of that was that of a little bit more raw kind of interpretation, which he said that that HDBs are if I'm not wrong, if I'm quoting correctly, are the biggest manifesto of the Singaporean government propaganda. In the sense that no matter where you look, the success of the Singaporean government with the buildings are testament to the success of the governmental political ruling. So no matter what you say, you can never say that the BAP is bad or anything, because you just look around. The government has provided houses for so many million people. It's a physical testament to their might, to their dominance over the country. That's one way of seeing it, right? And to me, that whole interpretation or that whole new perspective of the present reality did also influence me to also try to also dig deeper. What is the intent? What's the motive between of the certain space, and how can this also have a unique message towards me? Yeah. So I think that was kind of like the original thing that led me on this very negative kind of perception, but also that it does have a positive response, because through this negative way of seeing the place, I was able to be more keen or more aware to see the gaps, and through the gaps I have a certain response to the problems that I saw or uncovered to my process.
So the gap was like the period of time where you went overseas.
No. The gap, it was that period of healing for myself, or on an emotional level, or maybe of a person or as a vessel. Yeah. So the gap. So in your response to your question of like what was the gap for me, I feel like the gap was like I said like the origin of the space, or like the original meaning or definition of that space for has been defiled or has been taken away from, is decontextualized, and now it is performing a function or a program that is not in cohesion with the will or intent of the structures or the architecture. And that's why I saw it was being violated lah.
Okay.
So that was the gap. So I wanted to bring it back to a new intervention. Yeah.
And that was the healing.
Yes.
Currents.
Yes, the currents.
And how high is the whole structure? I mean, it looks kind of dangerous to me when I look at it because it's so open and
So that's a fun part for that's the fun part of my studio, or at least my studio lecturers. They allow us to be a bit more like unrealistic, but yeah, it's really fun. It's very fun. Some of my other friends also had really odd structures. They had like some things that were dangling out of buildings. One even like broke through a building to also introduce a new view, and I thought that was very interesting. Yeah, interesting studio. It's a very interesting studio. I really loved it a lot. Yeah, but I think it was due to a lot of the lecturers. Yeah. Well, do you have any points of like critique? Or how do you think I can improve it?
Improves.
Or like you saw a certain gap.
To be honest, when I first saw this thing, I kind of have like this UI UX perspective that I saw going on in this like whole space thing, where like this whole line, what's that line called again? The slice. So when I saw that slice, it reminded me of like user experience. Sorry, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, so it's like why I say it feels like user experience because like for example like just like okay, so I live in a HDB area, right? And there's like a park and like those black road parks. And then there's like this bush in the middle of a section where like you can walk around the park. And then like some people just decided to like cut across that bush because like they want to like take a short way back home. So that's how I see like that slice thing, like a user experience where like it kind of like bring people closer together.
One thing I did discover when I walked along the slice was that you also do uncover new spaces and new experiences along the way because you went against the whole process and you recreated your own path.
Yeah. That's
it's a very interesting method. All right. At this point of time, I think I will hand off to Florence to share her project to us through screen sharing. Let's go.
This is a collaborated project that I did with one of my classmates. I'm not quite sure if she wants to be mentioned in this podcast or whatsoever, so I think I have to bleep her name out later. And I have to give a lot of credit to her because she has been like one of the main person pulling this project together as well. And I also realized that you speak really fast during your podcast, and I think I will be speaking like slower than you.
Sure, you just go your own thing.
So we were given like this project, right? And we can choose like whatever topic that we want or whatever brands that we want actually. So one of the common interests that we actually have is books. And we really love like physical books. So what got us really into wanting to, and also it has to be like a local brand if I'm not wrong, or something along that line. Yeah, so we chose like books, and then we went to use Barsheer as the brand that we will work on for campaign creation and integration. Yeah, maybe I can share like what's the brief about. You have to come up with an advertising campaign and how you integrate like different media channels together. So like how you use social media, how you use like outdoor what do you call it? Outdoor campaign. So these assignments that connect an audience of your choosing to a product or service from a brand in a way that wasn't possible 3 years ago. Yeah, so that was a big okay. We started off with like a brand research. So we actually had to do like a UI UX we had to do like a background research of the brand. So like they began like operating in 1980s, and they used to go from door to door. So like I remember Panin also shared about like how he used to like they used to go to like all those like agencies to actually knock on their door and like sell their books. So that's how they they go about back then. Their unique selling point is offering the diversity of modern and niche publication in the area of design and architecture, and their primary target audience is actually the creative industry, and then secondary will be like tourists and enthusiasts. So like we also did like SWOT analysis. So we discovered like some of the strength that they have, which is being resourceful. So they bring a lot of like niche publication. So like there are a lot of like publication that you actually cannot get, like a lot of like indie brand products that you cannot get from like your major bookstore like Kinokuniya, things like that. They actually also invited like artists to come and do a book sign. So there's this like one of my favorite artists, he's from Malaysia and it's called Zin Chin. He does like this Chinese mythical, kind of like gory, kind of like art style, and they actually published his book. So he actually came down to do like a show, and also that's a separate thing, and then they also like did like a book sign. So I went to meet him and get the book sign. So I think that was very cool, like how they engage with like the customer. And then their weaknesses. Okay, yeah, so some of the weaknesses that we found in this in the brand is that they have a rather high price point as compared to like other bookstore that we found, and they have like very and they lack like strong social media strategy as compared to like other brands, like if you look at Books Actually, they have like really creative way of like selling their brand. Yeah, and if you look at their online store, it's really like basic. Yeah, and they only have a single physical store in Singapore as compared to like the competitors. Yeah, so some of the opportunity that we actually saw was that they can actually like tap on existing consumer base and like gather feedbacks, reviews, and areas of improvement to sustain like the bookstore, and also like to write on like throwback trends and to promote like how traditional bookstore is, like themselves. Some of the threats that we found were like competition of like digital books, and then there were like cheaper alternatives, and then there were also like National Library that provides wider range of books. Yeah, and we also like think we did some research on like their sales. Okay, yeah, so we also did like competitor audit, and we actually looked through like Books Actually, and we found like some of the strengths that they have, and we also looked at Oscream. They're all like really niche brand, and then we also found like Kinokuniya, and they also have like online bookstore, and most of them have like online bookstore as well. And then we have Book Depository, which is like one of the mega online store, if you don't know. Like they sell like really cheap books. Yeah, like really affordable books. And yeah, moving on, this is the insight and idea that we have. So the brief was to sustain a reading community, and the background was that graphic books are important source of inspiration as opposed to online references where ideas are saturated. So some of the dilemma and frustration that we found was that some titles are not easily available, while others are left on the shelf due to the ever-changing nature of the creative industry. And the ideal situation is that Barsheer Graphic Bookstore is able to cater to different consumer needs and build a sustainable reading community. So that's our insight one. Then we have like idea one, for all you need. So let me read through this. Yeah, so for all you need, right? The tone of voice is personable, light-hearted. So there's a book for everyone. Whether you need reference books for short-term projects or beautiful graphic novels to add to your collection of favorite illustration, we've got you covered. And believe us when we say this, no books get left behind. If you got a title that's been sitting on your shelf for ages, come get them swapped with someone. So this is the art direction. And then we also have Sparking Joy. So back then there was like this Spark Joy movement going on with the Marie Kondo. So we tapped on that as well. So the tone of voice was like warm and appreciative, and we aimed to offer publication that spark joy. But our own tastes and preferences change with time. If we got books that have been left on the shelf for a long time, it's time to thank the book and say goodbye. We believe in sustainability and the longevity in the books that will continue to spark joy for new owners, since one man's trash is another man's joy. So this was the art direction that we came up with, which is like warm, appreciative, joyful, and delightful. And then in Site 2, what we came up with was to encourage people to appreciate printed books and physical bookstore. So the background is that our bookstore remains true to its tradition of selling carefully curated collection of printed arts and design books. And the dilemma and frustration that we found out was that digital publications are easier to acquire at low prices and have a few indisputable advantages such as speed, eco-friendliness, and convenience. So some of the ideal situations that consumers will come to appreciate and see the value of a physical retail bookstore and its niche collection of printed publication. So this idea is print is dead, so tone of voice will be thought-provoking, purposeful. The idea was like, is print dead? And the question that we asked, and then at Barsheer Graphic Book, we believe otherwise. From all the years of curating books, we saw how the rise of digital media has caused readership to shrink, but our resolution to continue with our trade remain unrelenting. There's no turning back. We believe in crafting the full experience right when you step into our bookstore and peruse the unique collection of publication that is hard to come by. Long live print. So it was more like a instructive in introducing art direction that we had. And that's the end for this interim presentation. Yeah, so we came out with this campaign element, which is a 3-part motion with a that one I will really explain. So right after campaign, okay. So we have so we all know that the client is the challenge that we found is that bookstores selling physical book, they are faced with rapid changing environment of technology and the way consumer rates are increasingly digitally inclined. And so the outcome that we proposed this business model was that in the era of post-consumerism, people are interested in experiences more than ever. Barsheer should no longer be all about selling books, but a platform to build a sustainable reading community through experiences that feels authentic and enriching. So our objective was to embrace new consumer behavior, think beyond transactional relationship, and to focus on creating experiences. And so this was the 3-part motion graphic that we came up with. So the first part is basically like how, like a young artist and a young designer and like your senior, they come together and then they experience both worlds together, and then they found out that like it's difficult to understand each other, and then they wanted to make an effort to change. So and then after that things start to change and their worlds start to collide with one another. And then like it ends on like there are times when we hold strongly to our own belief and it takes time to discover this perspective that has always been there. So at the end, they learn to like build on each other and like the differences that they have. So that's where they connect, and that's how this Barsheer Book Club came about. So this is like the whole motion graphic that we wanted to go for, which is something more like illustrative instead of like a real person acting, because like after this is like a graphic bookstore. Yeah, I'm going to show her website, which first we split the project up. So I did mainly the on the storyboard, and then she did mainly on the UI UX stuff. Yeah, so these were some of the mobile app that she did, and then we have like AR interactive AR sticker of movies where you can interact with basically. And then the Barsheer Bookstore, which like they can. It's kind of cool. Like it brings back to like how they used to like go door to door, and then like they can also like swap unwanted books and things like that. Yeah, I think overall that's the whole. Yeah, basically I'm just showing like the app that we did. So like the whole part of like the loan, purchasing, subscription, event committee, they're all in this app. Yeah, where you can do all of these things. And then something that's like more outdoor and reaches to different audience as well, which is to promote the sustainability of books. Yeah, so then the book track came about. Later are we going to
Okay, so which elements do you have again?
the motion,
The motion
the
graphic.
storyboarding,
Uh-huh.
yeah, the mobile app,
Uh-huh.
and then the
And then
book
the
track.
truck. So each of them also all function in a certain way of like really communicating a new idea that Barsheer is also going to change.
So basically, like the whole idea of this project is that we are supposed to like tie in the whole different campaign and to make it into like a one sum in this project. So like how the social will lead back to the motion, how the website will lead back to the motion, and things like that. Okay, so personally, in my opinion, when we did this project, right, that was the thing that lacked for me, was that one voice in the project. Because I felt like we had a lot of things going on, and then it didn't tie in together like to bring out the true essence of the project itself.
One thing I really liked about your project was that it was also looking at trying to, if I'm not wrong, you had a certain idea of like having increasing the lifetime of the books, right? And then after that and giving it a more of like a life cycle. Was that what you were looking at, right? So like the book exchange, and then after that moving up ideas. I really like that a lot, because what you're looking at is where the ideas also continue to circulate, and then after that, and the process of the circulation, then the circulation of the ideas also does breathe life into the whole community. And I think that's very interesting, where it isn't like just stagnant and it just goes from one point to another point, and after that it just dies.
Yes.
But instead of, it's like a more of an exchange of ideas, and then after that there's the movement, and then with the energy, and it kind of gains momentum that way. Yeah, and that's what I think is very cool.
Yeah, you're right about that. Like we're trying to build like this whole sustainability of like how like, you know, like a bookstore can actually be more than just a physical store itself.
Right. Do you have any? What kind of programs did you use to develop these things?
We basically just use Photoshop, and we didn't actually have to do like the actual prototype.
Right.
But in the other previous project, we actually needed to make the project work. But for this, it's more like a hi-fi looking,
Right.
just the whole feel and look of it and how it works. But we don't actually have to work on it. But the app that we use is, how is it? I can't remember the
Adobe Express or something like that.
It's the new one. XD, yeah, Adobe XD.
Oh yeah, you use Adobe XD. So you guys created the visuals in like Illustrator, and then after that plugged it into XD.
Yeah, something like that, but that's for the other projects.
Right. Yeah. So with the app, and how is the app again introduced into the whole program again? Like how does it increase the usability?
The usability is more like drawing like the whole community together. Yeah, so if you look at like National Library, they have like an app itself.
Right.
Yeah, then you can like loan e-books, check on things and stuff like that. So we try to like integrate like using this mobile app to like tie in together with like the community.
Right.
Like a lot of like actually a lot of brands, they are actually using apps like even Circle Life. They don't have a physical store per se.
Right.
They do like event based, and then they also and they only do event based, I think, and then they focus mainly on the app to reach to their audience.
I like that idea because it also is looking at also redefining what it means to have a physical having a store or like a collective kind of thing. Because nowadays also, especially during the coronavirus, and then after that, like being physically at a space also doesn't mean it's a good thing, right? Having a store and all that kind of thing. So what the exploration of a digital surrogate or a digital space is, I think it is fresh, and in that sense it also does redefine the bookstore and the exchange of ideas. Yeah, and having using this as an intervention to also allow people to interact with media and ideas.
And talking about like coronavirus, right? Like there are many like traditional brands and stores.
Services?
Yeah, they're actually being pushed to like think about different alternatives of like how they can actually do their businesses.
Right.
Yeah, like even like if I'm not wrong, the Ramadas, the festival, they're actually also starting out like online store where they sell their cookies and stuff.
Well, maybe could we go on to the truck? Could we scroll down to the truck? Like, so the point of this was like it also functioned as an event kind of thing, and then after that bringing the books to the people kind of thing. Maybe could you tell me more about that?
The whole idea was more like to bring audience to like, okay, so if you look at the loans, if you look at the event and community, it's basically like to create this sustainability idea of like how people have like books that they don't want to, and they would like to exchange the books in exchange to like have a new book without actually spending money for it.
Right.
Yeah, so that was what we were trying to go for.
And it's interesting as it's also integrated into the app where it's a whole ecosystem of notifications, I guess. And it's a time and place kind of thing, and it makes certain it kind of like, for me, I think of it as like it kind of like jump starts new moments, and for new people to meet together and to create the community through these instances in place and time. So I think that's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you get my drift?
Yeah, I do.
What were some of the challenges that you faced when you were also crafting this project?
I think some of the challenges I faced while working on this project is that I have to manage like work and the heavy workload. So that's why I said like in the beginning, like my friend, my classmate, she actually like kind of carried through the project. So yeah, I'm quite grateful for her. Like I can rely on her.
Right.
Yeah, I think that was one of the challenge.
What do you really love about this project?
What I really love about this project is that both of us, we really love like just books in general. I can't remember if she actually read online books, but to be honest, both of us actually do buy books from book depository.
Right.
Yeah, but we also do go down to Barsheer and always like once in a while to support them. Yeah, so that's why we wanted.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's why we wanted to like really tap on Barsheer, because we really think that is really something that we should cherish, and we really hope that they can live long.
Right. So you are. I think what you're looking at is you're trying to revitalize a certain service or community by introducing a new kind of activity and program, and then after that way also it can continue for another decade or so.
Yes.
Because
yes.
you now have a certain kind of base that's driven by the people, because that's originally that's how it also lives, right? And then it's trying to give the people a new way of interacting with the store. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, like yeah.
Right, which is the experience, right?
Yeah, experience. They tap on the experience and the current audiences that we face.
Right.
Like, yeah, most of us are always on the digital space.
I think what is really interesting about the project is that yeah, like I said, like you're trying to revitalize through a new kind of program, and then after that, through the program you get a community moving and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's an interesting looking point for the other people also can look at. Yeah. What like it's kind of like the where the visuals and you're not just creating a pretty thing, you know, but you're also creating a new way of interacting with the other people within that space. Yeah. What do you love about design? Why do you think design is a place that you like to be at?
I think at a very young age, I've always been very interested in visual things. Like people always say like males are like visual creatures. But I feel like male are like visual creatures. I don't know where that comes from, but personally I feel like I'm quite a visual creature as well.
Sure.
So since I remember like when I was very young, I used to like actually I wanted to do something related to spatial design, like more like interior. But I realized that I don't think that can be my niche, because whenever I look at people who does like architectural stuff, I always see them as like very godlike, because they're always so down to the nitty-gritty, the details, which I don't think I can ever do that. And they must have like be good at math as well, which I don't think I am. Yeah, so when I was very young, I used to draw like little maps with like houses, like interior houses, things like that. Then I'll just play with it. So there's just some stuff that I did as a kid. And I also came up with like this comic book. Yeah, like this four parts series of a comic book. It's pretty small. Yeah, it's about ants. And yeah, I think it sparked me a lot, like doing visual excites me in general.
There's something about like being also like for myself as a photographer, like it's always about, I think it's about telling the stories, I guess, and trying to use different ways to also connect to different people. For me, at least for my photography stuff, like I use like photographs to also like capture people in the period of time, and I try to create the experience for them as like a wedding photographer and stuff like that. And I feel like I think that's the beauty of like illustrations and things that are visual, that we're also trying to also pull out and draw out the beautiful things and like keep the best stuff together, and after that like eliminate all the things that sometimes might detract from like whatever we see. Yeah.
I mean, like everything you see is like a design.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Okay, so Florence, how would you conclude today's session?
I think today's session was quite interesting. Like I get to hear your point of view of like spatial design. Like it's not something that I would actually go and explore or to like read up on. Yeah. So I think that was interesting to like get to see like what you create. Right. And like what goes on behind your brain when you create.
Which is quite a lot. Which is a bit too much sometimes. What I really loved about today's session was that we were looking at how interesting I think what my summary for today is like, it's not we're looking at different programs and how the different programs don't always have to be in the same type of dimension. For mine was a physical dimension, and for yours was a more digital dimension. And after that, it's through these new programs that we try to revitalize a certain community, right? Don't you see? Like for mine was we're trying to revitalize a community that was in a certain place with a certain history and a certain context. For yours, you're trying to revitalize a certain history or a certain community through a different program, right? And you're trying to in the concept of moving the objects around, of moving the books around, and then through that you also increase or increase the lifetime of that space, and you bring people together, and you also, it's like a body, you know. Through this new activity, it's like exercise, and then the more you move, and then after that more healthy it becomes, and through that circulation you introduce more moments and more opportunity for growth, which I think is a very interesting thing to think about, because most of the time we think about design as a moment. We design and then say, oh, it's nice already, okay, it's done, right? But what we're both looking at is we're trying to also look at a long-term kind of perspective of trying to design, and I think yeah. So yeah, that's my takeaway from today, I think, which is very interesting. Okay, so yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to our little design breakdown. Hope that you enjoyed it. I think I learned some interesting stuff. Do send your thoughts or put your thoughts in the DMs or comment me, share, like, and subscribe to Preppy Asher on Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. Tune in every Tuesday for new episodes, full hearts, big brains, and warm cuddles. So yeah, say bye.
Can I just give a shout out to my classmate? Yeah, for teaming up with me and for just withstanding my nonsense. And cause we're gonna bleep out her name, right? So if anybody is actually interested to see like the whole thing on her website, can I just DM me and I'll send you the link.
Yeah. Okay. So if you guys want to find out more about the full project, you can DM Florence, and then after that she can pass you the link to actually see the project in private, and yeah. So yeah, because of privacy issues and stuff like that. But yeah, thank you so much for being part of today's show, Florence.
Thank you so much.